So we've done the advantages and disadvantages of loans. We'll now do venture capitalists. If you have your slides in front of you, please. I'm basically going to use the slides, but I'm also going to add to the slides in red, and anything then that I add in red, we can keep on the record. Also, anything or any examples that I give today, make sure you are adding to your PowerPoint slides. And when I do the quick recap, I'll let you know what your slides should look like. It's now past. I think we'll probably get finished in terms of input at 12 o'clock. We only have one little bit left to do. Then we will do some activities. So I'm going to give you some tasks to do. And then tomorrow, we will go through those tasks and look at who got what correct. So just to let you know, I see you 4 times this week. So we will be starting new content this week, probably on Wednesday. So venture capitalist. Investment from an established business into another business in return for a percentage equity in the business. Now, before we do anything, we need to establish whether venture capitalists are internal and external. And it's that first sentence that will give us that indication. Investment from an established business. So straight away, that tells us that it's an external source of finance. So an established business outside the firm is investing into our firm. So investment from an established business into another business. So if I owned a firm, somebody's firm is coming and investing in my firm. So it can be classed as business-to-business investment. So it's not shareholders, but it's businesses investing. Why and what do those businesses get? Those businesses would get a return like any other person that invests in a business. So a business would invest in another business in return for equity in the firm. And we mentioned equity before, and we've said that equity is another word for asset or ownership. So a business is investing in the other business in order to source investment, equity, assets within that firm. It can be known as private equity. So from time to time, you'll hear, or you might have heard people say, oh, where do I work? Oh, I work in investment, or I work in hedge funding, or I work in finance. Investment or venture capitalist is another word for private equity finance. Okay, and there's loads of companies whose sole business is to do this. So venture capitalists will normally look for a high rate of return. So these businesses that are investing in other businesses would want a high rate of return. Now, the question is, well, why would they want a high rate of return? If business A is invested in business B, they are usually bringing with them a skill set. They are usually bringing with them expertise. So experience. They're usually bringing with them ideas. So the business is, business A is investing in business B and bringing those skill set with them. So the idea being is they would expect to have that high rate of return. They would expect that if company B is going to take their capital, then they're going to reward them for doing so. The business or the entrepreneur may also benefit from expertise and mentoring from the venture capitalist. So venture capitalists can invest money and kind of be silent, or venture capitalists can invest and mentor them through. So when we're talking about mentoring, we're referring there to advice, maybe some guidance. And again, they're mentoring because they have experience in the market in which they're operating. Often associated with high-risk startups. So, I might be starting up my business. It's highly risky. I'm operating maybe in a highly competitive, market, and I know what I'm doing, but I would just like to have, somebody else to help me. I would like to have some other ideas or somebody else to back me up. And I would also like to have capital. So it is a good business, but it's high risk and it's highly competitive. And what I could source, you would source a venture capitalist for capital, obviously, for money, but also for those expertise. Now, the downside for me is if I get a venture capitalist, I'm going to have to, the expectation is that I should be giving them a high return. So it's a bit like a shareholder, only it's another firm. Okay. Obviously, you do not write an exam. It's a bit like a shareholder. Okay. But key things there, it's an external source of capital. It's usually for high risk businesses. The business who's investing gives the advice and guidance. They bring along their expertise and their experience, and the advice or the expectation is, that they will get a high return for that. So to guess the question is, well, what are the advantages and disadvantages? If you were a business, why would you want to source capital from a venture capitalist? And I think it's pretty obvious we've touched upon the main advantage. First of all, the potential of large sums of money. Remember what we said, it's not Joe Blogg investing, it's business to business investment. So the expectation is that the business who is investing in you would be giving you a large sum of money. Okay, so this is going to be suitable for probably an established firm. It's probably going to be an established firm that seeks large sources of finance. Okay, biggest advantage there, it brings along their expertise to help the firm in their strategies and their decision making. It makes it easier to attract other sources of finance. So what we mean by here is if a firm has a venture capitalist, then banks or other external sources may feel, you're writing all of this in, may feel more at ease because now they know that the business has another business basically backing them up. Now the other sources or the other people that you could source money from now knows that they are backed up and they have expertise. So, for instance, if I am an individual and I have, I don't know, £200 to invest, would I want to buy a share in a firm that has a venture capitalist with loads of expertise, or would I want to invest in a business that has no venture capitalist and has maybe nobody else helping them out? So here it's easier to attract other sources of finance. Let's see, can I get rid of this? There, bring it across there. Provides the required capital for expansion. Remember what we said, usually you get a venture capitalist if you are seeking large amounts of money. So it's usually for a strategic reason, okay? So a strategic direction or a strategic change. So if a company is making a big change, some capitalist is the best way to go. So for instance, let's say I own a company and I decide to relocate all of my plants, all of my equipment to, I don't know, Japan. So I'm leaving Kent and I'm moving to Japan. That's a huge strategic change. That's a huge shift in the direction in which I am currently operating. I might need money to do so. I might, for instance, decide to source a venture capitalist who has already made that move, a venture capitalist who already has factories in Japan. So I'm able to benefit from those expertise. Downsides, it's long and complex. So, you know, you're not walking down Bexley High Street looking for a venture capitalist. You're going to have to do an awful lot of research. You're going to have to do an awful lot of tendering. So you're going to have to speak to all these venture capitalists and really convince them to invest in your firm. Expert financial projections are likely to require, you're not going to go to a large investment or venture capitalist and say, hi guys, we're a really good business. Do you fancy coming along and actually being part of our firm? They would expect, the venture capitalists would expect detailed reports. They would expect financial projections, cash flow projections, budgeting. They would expect you to be able to determine maybe, what it is that you're actually projecting to make, how much you're actually projecting to make, when you think you're going to make it. So it's much more detailed than just finding a venture capitalist. So it's going to take a little bit of manpower. You're going to have to kind of invest in actually preparing these files, you know, which is going to take time. It's going to take expertise. It's going to take planning. It's going to take budgeting. So it's not something that can be done overnight. It can be expensive. So initially, the actual bidding and actual going to the venture capitalist can be expensive for firms. So again, you're going to have to maybe do up your budgeting, your planning, your accounts. You may have to spend money for that. You might have to get a solicitor. You might have to get some legal documentation in place. The fourth one there, quite straightforward. You're going to lose. So, you know, you're investing in this, or sorry, this venture capitalist is investing in your firm. As we've already said, the venture capitalists will want a return, and they will want part ownership. So they're going to want to source some of the business itself. So you are going to lose out loss of control. Risk of conflict or perceived interference. So, you know, you have this venture capitalist come along. They are giving advice, and they are giving their expertise, but it could be seen as interference. So it could be welcomed, or could be seen as a negative thing. You know, you don't want that person. You know, you're going to Japan, and your venture capitalist has already moved to Japan, and he's telling you what his experience was, or their experience was, and somebody else is telling you what their experience was. And actually, at the end of the day, you don't necessarily want to know their personal opinion. You just want to know their business advice. Sometimes it can be seen as a negative impact. So we'll do the same thing as what we've done previously. We are going to prepare a. Can I put comment on that? Yeah, we're going to prepare an exam style question. And you write this in. Do you believe that venture capitalists are a suitable source of finance? Okay, again, they're external, so you need to be careful and make sure that the source finance you're choosing actually suits the need of the question. So, do you believe that venture capitalists are a suitable source of finance? Okay, so just as a quick recap to kind of go through where we are, let me just kind of put that maybe down there, and then it's out of our way. So, for those students.